Well, thank you for joining us today. I think hang on just a moment. Give everyone just a minute to join us. Well, thank you for joining us today. I'm Deanne Crane with the National Safety Council. I'm the moderator for this morning. And Our Driving Concern Employer Traffic Safety Program is pleased to be able to offer how stress affects driving. So just a couple of quick things before we get started and before I introduce our presenter. You do have the capability to ask questions in the chat. So as we go along, if you have a question, just pop it in the chat and we'll address it at the end. And then for a smooth presentation for everyone, if you'll keep your audio and your video muted throughout the session, that will help us greatly. And so I want to go ahead and welcome our presenter this morning, April Ramos. She is a program manager with the National Safety Council in the Our Driving Concern program. And I'm going to just jump in, turn it over to her to get started.
Thank you, Deanne. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We have a short presentation for you this morning, just 30 minutes. So hopefully it's packed full of jewels for you. But let's get started. I cannot see the chat. So as you type things in the chat, I'm going to ask Deanne to read out what you guys have put in there, because we do want to hear from you. We want you to get the most out of this. So we want you to participate. Okay. All right. Let's jump right on in and talk about how stress affects driving. Here you go. Sorry, my slides need more coffee. All right. But before we get too far down the road of stress, let's just talk a little bit about our program. As Deanne was saying, the Our Driving Concern Employer Traffic Safety Program, or Transportation Safety Program, works with employers to promote safe driving practices among their employees. And the workplace is a very important area for prevention outreach, and I think an overlooked area because it really can have a large impact on our traffic safety community and just traffic safety in general. But as you see from these bullets, crashes not only affect individual worker and coworkers, but also the employer through lost work time, productivity, poor performance, rehiring and training costs. I mean, it just goes on and on. So it really does benefit employers to put the time in up front to build that traffic safety culture. A bit about the National Safety Council's definition and approach. The way that the National Safety Council, or NSC, approaches workplace impairments, we define it as the inability to function normally or safely as a result of a number of factors, anything from chemical substances such as alcohol, opioids, cannabis, to physical factors like fatigue, as well as experiencing mental distress and social factors like stress. And that last part is what we're going to take a deeper dive into today. But what is stress? I love this World Health Organization definition. Maybe you don't need a definition. You're like, I know what stress is. I experience that every day. And I do want to hear from you, but let's talk about this definition. And then I want you to type into the chat what things are stressing you out lately. Please feel free to leave out politics, because I think we're all stressed out from that. No matter what you believe in, I think just election time was stressful. But the WHO, or World Health Organization, defines stress as a state of worry or mental tension caused by a difficult situation. So stress is a natural human response that prompts us to address challenges and threats in our lives. Everyone experiences stress, right? To some degree, but the way that we respond to the stress, that is what really makes a big difference. So take a moment, please. I'd love to hear from each and every one of you. I know that'll keep Deanne really probably overly busy, but I want to hear what's stressing you out lately. Maybe it's the kids, the drop off, bills. You don't have to go share too much, but tell me what's stressing you out. What is causing you worry or mental tension? I'll give you a few minutes and As you type those in, DM will read those out. Get your coffee if you haven't. Go ahead.
That's right. That's right. So we have natural disasters,
Yeah.
hurricanes, tornadoes, wildfires, the job market,
Yes.
financial stress with the holidays, lack of activities, the chores to do, holidays. Someone put updated grant reporting. Absolutely.
Yep. Absolutely.
Driver compliance, medical issues, whether it's for yourself or for your family, financial and inflation. So a lot of stressors.
Yes,
Student
a lot.
behavior, company politics. There's a lot to be stressed about.
I'm
So
saying.
we're
Yeah.
so glad that you're here to learn about it and things that you can do.
Absolutely. And then I want to draw your attention back to the last part of this definition is the way that we respond to stress. So similarly, take just a few seconds. How are you responding to all these stressors that you listed, right? Whatever it's from the grant reporting to traffic to whatever the other things you listed, how are you responding to that? Do you have something in place already? Because these might be everyday things, right? Just par for the course stressors. So take a minute. How are you responding right now?
Anyone want to share how they respond to stress right now?
Oh my gosh.
Um, drinking tea, taking walks, medication, adequate sleep, yoga and walking, prioritizing tasks, yelling and breathing. Sometimes I yell too.
Sometimes yeah.
Yeah, getting organized and just feeling in control of a situation by organization. Lots of coffee and taking breaks. A pet, so holding your pet. Budgeting, therapy, taking a short me moment. I love that.
Yes.
Asking questions, or asking questions, connecting with others in the same situation.
Yes.
A glass of wine. Working on staff improvement, sleep, exercise, diet, working. So lots and lots of ways that people are coping.
Y'all are doing great. Training over.
Yeah.
We're done for the way. I'm just kidding. But those are great. Those are great. I want you to remember all those as we move down. So we have this stress, right? All the just the regular mental tension we have every day. But then we get in, if we have too much stress, that can lead to mental distress, which now your mental well-being is being challenged, right? So you have all those everyday things. You're pretty good at handling them, as you guys were letting us know. But this, maybe things build up and you weren't able to take that me moment or drink your tea or you missed yoga and now you're starting to feel the pressure. If that continues, then it can lead to mental illness, which is a diagnosable health condition. And that does happen from time to time. I won't ask you guys to share that. I will share my own, just saying that I've had anxiety issues in the past. Same kind of situation here. Things just build up, diagnosed with anxiety. Great now, but I had to do a lot to walk that back, right? So we're going to talk more about how we can really cut it off at the pass, so to speak. But from a safety point of view, from a safety impact, which is why you're here, right? Impairment from any cause is a fitness for duty concern, right? And fitness for duty, while that's a technical term, is really, just a way of saying, can you work? Can you get your job done efficiently and effectively, right? And so what we see from stress, mental distress, is this reduced ability to concentrate and think clearly. And maybe that's happened to you. Maybe you've had someone that's ill in the family and you just couldn't think about much else except that person and their health. A decreased coordination and sensory perception. When I get really stressed, confession, I will trip. I don't know what it is. It's just the stress, the way my body handles it. I will trip on anything, and it's a joke with my kids, like, mom's stressed, I better move everything out of her way because she might fall. Slower reaction time, other physiological impacts, psychological rather, personality changes, mood changes, or irritability. So really this bullet, another way to say you're not in a good mood, right? Changes in workplace behaviors and performances. So maybe you were the one that says good morning every day or makes the pot of coffee for the office. And when you're really stressed out, you start experiencing mental distress, you stop doing that, you retreat a little bit. So that's one example of changes in behaviors in the workplace. Um, Being stressed out can lead to distracted driving. So if you're distracted and can't concentrate in an office setting, you're definitely going to do that behind the wheel, whether you're commuting to and from the office or you're driving as part of your job duties. It can cause you to be distracted. And this is where it starts to get really dangerous, right? Is behind the wheel, because nobody ever died from distracted photocopying, right? It's getting behind the wheel now and being distracted. Fatigue, you're stressed, you're staying up late, maybe with a newborn baby, it's stressing you out and you're so tired. Now you're behind the wheel. That's not a good combination. And then lastly, the bullet we all know and love, aggressive driving and road rage. When you're stressed out, I mean, all those people, right, that are yelling, they look so stressed out. You can just tell from afar, man, something's going on with them. So just a snapshot here. Um, all of these issues can cause a safety risk, right? In general, these factors can affect an employee's cognitive and physical performance. So you have a job that requires more physical movements, lifting things, carrying things. Um, Healthcare workers come to mind. It's a very physical job, walking around, treating patients, seeing patients. All those things can affect it. An impairment is often a hidden risk. It's not clearly visible like other things. Somebody has a physical injury, right? So sometimes it may take a little bit more talking to a coworker or an employee to find out what's going on. And remember, you're not being intrusive. You are asking and talking to them out of a concern for their well-being. And in a work environment, everyone's well-being affects everybody else, doesn't it? Right? If one person's in a bad mood, then that can quickly spread throughout the office or the workplace. Data is not easily available, though, to help us understand when impairment or stress is at the root cause. So, as we just discussed, impairment can result from many different scenarios, and it's important for the employer to approach employees compassionately without jumping to conclusions about the cause of any performance changes or fitness for duty concerns, because stress can appear like a drug impairment, can't it? And so we want to just be careful in that way that we're not accusing. So workplace impairments survey, a little over half of respondents have stated that impairment is decreasing the safety of their workforce. So NSC did this employer survey is what this is. It's a little snapshot of the results. In 2020, so during the pandemic, to understand how employers view impairment as a safety risk and also what they're doing to address it. So they received responses from 350 people, and these were decision-making people such as HR managers, safety professionals, and the like. And then we've used this data to inform our NSC programming, and it's just further proof that impairment is affecting safety in the workplace. So that second arrow, 45% of those employers say impairment is causing more near misses, which is a really high percent. 39% say impairment is causing more injuries. So we know impairment, and stress is part of that impairment issue, is causing significant concerns in the workplace. So What do you think employers spend on average a year on on employees who experience mental distress? Go ahead and type that in the chat. What dollar amount do you think employers spend on employees in a year who experience mental distress? Take a sip of my tea, speaking of tea, while you guys type that in the chat.
Somebody put 75,000.
Wowza.
50,000.
Okay. Guesses?
60,000, 10,000, 100,000, 20,000. So we're kind of all over the board.
What are the names of the 20, the 20 and the 10 people?
Say that again.
What were the names of the people who guessed 10,000 and 20,000?
Angela Wallace, Lexi. Someone put most places that they've worked, they spend zero.
Oh, well.
So that's something we're going to talk about.
Yeah. Well, Lexi and Angela, you got the closest. So congratulations. It's 15,000. So yay, good for you. But let's take a closer look at these costs. So mental health costs to employers, like you just guessed, spend on average 15,000 more a year on employees who experience mental distress. But that first box, each mentally distressed worker costs an employer over $4,700 a year in extra days of missed work. And in the middle, you see each mentally distressed worker costs an employer over $5,700 a year in costs related to turnover. So maybe they had to rehire and retrain somebody. And then lastly, you see for every dollar invested in mental health treatment, there's a $4 return in improved health and productivity. So it really does behoove employers to invest some money in mental health. We do have a great cost calculator that you can access via that link on the bottom, that nse.org/mental health mental health at work. Sorry, I need more coffee. So a little bit about the mental health piece here. The cost calculator that you can access via the link that I said incorrectly is an authoritative and easy to use tool providing business leaders with specific information about the costs of mental health, including depression, anxiety, and general mental distress. So mentally distressed workers, just to give you a couple more statistics, cost employers over $2,800 more in healthcare services per year than their peers. And the low prevalence occupations include executive, administrative, managerial, financial. So the high levels, right? Jobs with the higher levels of stress include entertainments, sports, media and communications, politics, technicians, and related support occupations. And then lastly, employees who have experienced mental distress in the past year are more likely to have reported driving under the influence of alcohol or other drugs. And that last bullet makes sense, right? You're stressed out, you may turn to alcohol in excess to help cope with your stress, and then get behind the wheel if you were drinking away from home, which is not a good choice, right? So positive culture and employee engagement. So how are we going to start to make bigger strides, fixing this problem, working on this problem? So encouraging employee participation while building impairment and well-being programs that include stress management. So this is all part of the culture. It's ongoing. So you can't just do one off here, one off there. What is the culture? What is the program that you're participating in every day? And then having a supportive, health and wellness focused, stigma-free workplace is important for a person dealing with impairing issues. So that I want to talk about that piece of that bullet that says stigma-free. Why don't people talk about being stressed out? I want to hear from you in the chat. I'm so happy that you guys did put something in the chat earlier about what was stressing you out, but in a normal work environment, when you see people face to face, what keeps people from saying, Deanne, I am so stressed out today. My kids are driving me nuts. Like, what prevents some people from doing that, do you think? Let me hear from you in the chat.
We have a couple of good ones that were just
Ooh,
posted in the chat. Peer pressure and
yes.
judgment, and
Mm,
afraid that you'll be perceived and or feel weak.
mm,
Um, don't want uh, someone that you tell to think that you can't do your job
yep.
um, because it's personal. Fear
Sure.
of being typecast in a certain way.
Yeah.
Uh, some people might think it's an excuse.
Yeah.
Don't think people will listen. Those are all great things that we have in the chat that we can talk about.
Yeah, those are fantastic. And all of those are is a an example of how people may not feel psychologically safe to talk about this, right? And so as an employer, that's one of the things that you can do. So earlier when I shared with you about my anxiety, leading this conversation this morning, hopefully that put you at ease a little bit, like, oh, maybe you're sitting on the other end of this thinking, well, I've had some anxiety too. It's nice to hear that somebody else did and she's not afraid to talk about it because it's part of life. And to the point, one of the comments in the chat about feeling typecast or they may not think you can do your job. If you admit you have anxiety, maybe they think, oh, they're going to get anxious, right? That's just not the case. Everybody experiences these things, as one of the earlier slides said. And I think creating, again, that psychologically safe work environment to talk about it when you need to, especially with your manager or supervisor, letting them know what's going on, and then being supportive to them. Here's what I can offer as your manager, and here's what we can offer as your employer, right? The company on a larger level. So thank you guys so much for sharing. That was just fantastic. Um, a great note on here that we have is leading by example and building a culture of health and well-being are critical, right? That's what we just said. Leaders, supervisors, and other managers have an essential role in addressing mental health and distress and encouraging social connectedness in the workplace. So I used to work for the health department, and every month we would have a birthday breakfast, and it was a potluck. And I was always really hesitant to go because despite this presentation, I'm actually an introvert. So I would always be really, you know, reluctant to go. But everyone would sit around and start talking about their kids, start talking about what they did on the weekend, what hobbies they had. And everybody just left with smiles on their faces because we got to talk about something that wasn't work, right? We got to talk about some of the things that meant a lot to us, like our family. So simple things like that you can do in the workplace, and it doesn't have to be a big breakfast. You could have a coffee, right? A weekly coffee talk, things like that. And maybe you are doing some of those things right now. Please do feel free to share those in the chat so that others can read and get ideas of how to implement some really simple ways to build social connections in the workplace. So moving on, I want to be sure we get all the slides in. Policies and procedures. So workplaces should ensure robust supervisor training. So if you have a little bit of training every once in a while, really consider bulking this up for your supervisors on topics. Here's just a couple of topics to get you started. Understanding organizational resources. So again, when I used to work for the state, things would come up, maybe this anxiety, and they'd have to look up. Well, I don't know what we have. Let me look it up. That's a bad time to make yourself familiar, right, with the policies. So if you're a manager or supervisor, just really strongly encourage you to know the resources that your company, your agency provides, and seek out training if you need it from your HR department. That second bullet, so important. Understanding language and how to talk to people experiencing mental distress. So, um, again, having anxiety at some point, someone asked me, well, are you crazy? That's the wrong language. No, I'm not. I'm having a moment, right? So maybe you can think again, please share in the chat. Would love to hear. You can give me examples of what not to say, or examples of great ways to talk to employees, right, when they're having mental distress. You definitely want to try to keep them calm. And then this last bullet, recognizing signs and symptoms of mental distress. So this goes back to that point we made earlier. It's not always going to be drugs and alcohol that are impairing a person or causing that behavior change. Sometimes they're just really, really stressed out. So specific to driving, these are things that you all said. Take breaks. I can't stress that enough. And as a supervisor manager, share your own experiences, similar to me sharing this morning, that you take breaks when you're driving. Concentrate on the driving task. Driving is a task and can be deadly, unlike other tasks, right? When you're sending an email, nobody ever died from sending an email, right? But you can die from driving and being distracted. So concentrate on that driving task, by avoiding distractions. Pull over in a safe place if you need to use your phone. We added that safe place because sometimes just the side of the road, if there's no shoulder, you want to be safe, right? Just because you're pulled over on the road doesn't mean you're free from a crash. So find a safe place, a parking lot where it's safe, well lit, etc. And then lastly, journey management. Prevention, prevention, prevention. Plan your trips as much as possible, even the short ones. And that means, like, if you need some water, make sure I have my water. I've got my phone stored away. I have my sunglasses, whatever you need for that trip, have it ready to go. That way, once you get behind the wheel, you can focus on the driving task. Well, I know that was short, but you guys, your participation was fantastic. Thank you for all your comments that you put in the chat. I really thought it made the morning. So, Deanne, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Great, thank you. Short but sweet. Yes. We want to try to get you, you know, uh, information in the most usable fashion. So we hope that you found some useful items to take out of today's webinar. On the screen, you will see a QR code. If you will open that up via your phones, and that is a quick evaluation for us. That really does help us with future webinars, events, resources. So your comments and your feedback are really valuable in helping us continue on with this program and provide each of you things that you need and can use in your organization daily. And thank you, Mandy. She popped the link in there. If you can't access the QR code right now, then there is an evaluation link that you can pull off. So, are there any last questions? I will follow up with an email in a few days of just kind of reiterating some of the things that we covered today and providing you some additional information on mental stress and some of the direct links to the cost calculator and things like that. So be watching for a follow-up email. And that concludes our session for today. We want to thank April for leading this webinar today and all of her expertise and openness on this subject. We want to thank each of you for attending today. We know your time is valuable and you chose to spend this time with us. So again, be watching for the follow-up email and connect with us with any questions or comments via the survey, or our emails are on this last screen as well. So please feel free to email us if you've got any questions. So that concludes the session. Thank you. Have a great day and be safe.